morning. Good morning this wet morning if you're in Lagos, Nigeria, or in my side of town. Although I think this rain is happening everywhere. What do you think? How are you doing? How are the children doing? How is the family doing? I hope you're having a great day. It's just starting for me. Well, not necessarily, but yeah, it's quite early in the day for me. So, a friend of mine asked me to comment on a video making the rounds of a child in a major state of distress. The video showed the child in a classroom situation, destroying things. I think that's the nicest way to put it without sugarcoating things. She was quite destructive and throwing a huge tantrum. She looked to me about age 4 or 5, and what stood out really was, apart from the extreme behavior on the part of the child, was the calm of the childminder, trying to talk to her in a level voice, trying to get her to translate her frustration to conversation, right? So it was, hey, thank you for joining in. So it was interesting to me that someone could be that calm. I'm Nigerian. I live in Africa. It's not the default setting. It's not the expected behavior of any childminder when a child goes to the far left, right, that like that, for the person responsible for that child at that point in time to be present enough and to be calming enough to try to have a conversation. The typical thing to resort to would be reset, okay? And that was the angle from which most of the people saw it, right? Most people in the comment section excuse me, of the person who posted the video, and it was expected, right? But I have questions. I wonder why the child chose that reaction. And I in my comment I said there are two things. It's either learned behavior or there's something deeper going on, which could be psychological or a parenting deficit or whatever, right? So I think what I'm trying to say is let's try not to allow the first thing that occurs to us in a situation be our default response, because usually there are other things that we didn't take into consideration, right? Again, we see things the way we are, not the way they are. So what if that child was suffering from some I'm not saying that's what it is, but hypothetically, if the child was suffering from some kind of psychological trauma, and you have reset the child in a typical violent manner, because that's what physical correction, corporal punishment is. If you have chosen that action, okay, and that's what you did, and then you find out later that this child was responding expectedly to whatever it is that she's going through, you can't undo what you've done, right? So I think the path that one must follow is a path of inquiry, a path of curiosity, right? You must seek to understand, why is this child behaving this way? Now, if it is a case, according to him, he says he believes that the child was raised not to have boundaries. Those were not his words, but that's my interpretation, or that's my paraphrasing, right? So if the child was taught not to have boundaries, then there's still a solution. And the solution is still not hitting the child or corporal punishment. The solution is realizing that this is where there has been a deficiency in the child's upbringing, and then create interventions that would help the child retrace their steps while still preserving the child's sense of identity and esteem. Because at the end of the day, those things will matter. those things will matter in the raising of a child. You want to preserve their curiosity, you want to preserve their self-esteem, you want to preserve their sense of identity. You want to give them a sense of identity, and you want to preserve it. Why? Because those things are the things that will count when you're not there. Those things they form the foundation, the core of a person. So if you want to sort out a child's tantruming situation, then you should not cause the child to pick up another problem, right? You don't solve one problem by creating another. So you are intentional about handling the matter, because clearly it requires intervention, right? It does require intervention. That child should not be allowed to proceed that way. But if you don't know why the child has acted out, then you cannot effectively design a solution that will solve the problem while preserving, again, the child's sense of identity, self-esteem, a sense of self-worth, a sense of self-capability, right? You want to be sure, thank you, you want to be sure that your actions don't hurt the child in the process. If you're going to harm the child, you might as well leave the child as is. But clearly, you want to give that child tools, because again, it was an emotional reaction to something. There was a trigger. If you find out what the trigger is, then you can help the child identify when the child is getting triggered, and then create something, give the child tools to work with their triggers. I hope somebody is understanding what I'm saying. So let us approach children with wanting to know why. There's always a purpose of behavior. There's a purpose to everything anyone does, whether they realize it or not, especially children who are still figuring out their emotions, they're figuring out their actions. Now, if this child ends up being because a lot of people were mentioning maybe she was autistic and all of that, then you really don't want to hit an autistic child, because they are not acting out, they're not choosing their actions. They are not true. Yes, I'm totally with you. Yes. Recent says, yes, you want to spank her because you want to reset. Right. I understand. I totally understand. But the question is, if the child resets that one time, have you solved a long-term problem? Most likely no. The child will cower to the cane. And like my husband put it to a parent recently, I found it very, very interesting. He said, when you have to deploy the use of cane to control your child, then your child was not really obeying you. They were obeying the cane. And for me, that was amazing. The child is responding to the cane. So you are here, okay, but the cane is here. So the cane is more efficient at raising your child. And like I like to ask parents, when you have escalated straight to caning your child, after that, then what do you do? When you have beat the child and the behavior still continues, what do you do? See, raising children has to be an escalation process. It has to be from one level to the other. That's why you are taught, or you are advised by professionals like myself, to maintain a certain level of voice. If you jump straight to shouting, after shouting, what next? When that child is in real and present danger, say your toddler is going near the electrical socket and you want them to move away very, very quickly because you can't reach them to pull them out of danger in time. When you shout and you're not used to shouting, then the child reacts because it's not a regular occurrence. But when you shout for eating, you shout when they broke a toy, you shout when they they don't shut a door, you shout when they shut a door too loudly, you shout when they shout, then of what use is the potential of being able to get your child out of danger by raising your voice so that you can get an immediate reaction? I don't know if you get what I'm saying. God help us, right? God help us. But we need tools, we need skills, and we need to understand that some of these things that we default to, they don't serve us. They don't serve us at the end of the day. So we need to do better. We need to learn. We need to be open to learning, because that's very, very important. And usually we need to unlearn first. We need to let go of those things that we have been taught. Because if those things were, God bless you too, thank you so much. If those things were so effective, as adults, I say this with all sense of responsibility, as adults, we are not all the way all right yet. Yes, because if a corporal punishment was that effective, then the indiscipline we see in our society should not be this bad, because it is bad. It is very bad. You find adults jumping queues. You find adults running lights without considering other people. You find adults driving and staying in the middle of the road to buy plantains while there are cars behind them. So where did they miss the lesson of consideration for others? Where? At home. Because for some reason, we're mostly in a survival mode. It's me or nobody else, where I'm supposed to be all right and any other person I can smuggle, or not smuggle, I can defraud the whole country and take money belonging to thousands of people and go on a holiday to Switzerland. And I don't feel some type of way about it. Right? So if our methods of discipline were so effective, our results should be different. Our society should be different. But the kind of things that are acceptable in our society shows us that the way we have been doing it could be better. Now, what some parents are hearing right now is that Oyinbo style of parenting. But look at their results, look at their society. I'm not saying they have it all figured out. No, they don't. Right? But is it possible that there are some things that we can learn from their methods or their orientation and replicate it, mixing it with our own cultural values? Is it possible, with our values of respect for elders, respect for other people, this fixation on greeting, on greeting? I hear things about greeting and I'm like, wow, it's so important to you. But, well, maybe the fact that you're taught to greet someone is telling you something about being considerate of other people, or being aware of their presence, acknowledging their presence. Okay, so if you see it from that perspective, because a lot of things about life is just perspective. If you stand from one side, you see things a certain way. If you step to another side, you see things a certain way, which is why I was talking about the video initially. Interrogate the first thing that jumps at you. Your child has done something, think about it before you react. Just ask yourself, why has this child done this? Could it have been a mistake? Could it be intentional? What do I need to do about it? All right. So it was the video that prompted this live session, this Instagram live this morning. I hope, I thank you, Resence, for joining me on this live, and I hope someone sees this later and it makes some sense to you. Okay, so questions, ask questions. Why? What did you hope to achieve by this? And like I like to say, when you ask your child questions, then they are forced to think about their actions. It's not just tell them what to do. You're not raising children that way. Giving out instructions, telling a child what to do all the time won't serve you on the long term. But when you ask them to think about what they have done, and they can explain, if they can explain it to you, then at the same time they're explaining it to themselves. Now, if it is a wrong choice, then you want to have them come to that realization without your help, because the earlier they start to do that, they are building their consciousness, they're building their value system, so they can tell another child or their sibling or their neighbor or whatever, this is why this is not good, because they came to that realization by themselves. While you focus on modeling good behavior, you focus on giving them a sense of identity, of letting them realize how valued they are as human beings, their intrinsic value as human beings. You focus on that. But when they've done something contrary to that sense of identity, your job is to remind them of who they are, right? If it's a personal orientation, if it's a family orientation, even better. So they are seeing examples around them on a regular basis, and you can say, this is not who we are in this family. Okay, I hope this has helped somebody. Thank you so much, and once again, for watching. God bless you, Resence. Thank you. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.